Next, we'd like to invite the candidates for the position of Women's Representative. Thank you very much. Now we have two candidates for the position of Women's Representative, Esra Gurkan and Audrey Martin. Esra, if you would like to go first, you've got 2 minutes to speak. We'll remind you at 10 seconds if you're still going.
Hi everybody, I'm Esra Gurkan, a second-year English and American Literature student here at Keele University. I apologise in advance because I'm pretty awful at public speaking. I tend to get very nervous. And so that might make you think, then why on earth is she running for Women's Representative? And it's because of how strongly I feel about women's rights. I'll be completely honest when I say that I don't know everything there is to know about women's rights or feminism. But what I do know is that I'm extremely passionate, hard-working and determined. And if elected, not only will I try and change things for the better, but I'll continue to learn and progress myself over the next year. Every day I learn more and more about feminism. It's defined as being the fight for the recognition of equal social, political and economical rights for women. And people do tend to think that it's fought by men hating of bra-burning women. But for me, in its most simplistic definition, it's about saying that men are great, but so are women. We're strong, independent and capable of the same success. We don't deserve to be tarnished as weak because we're emotional. We don't deserve to be called sluts, whores or promiscuous because we've had more than one sexual partner. We don't deserve to be sexually assaulted because we've decided to show a bit of leg, when we certainly don't deserve to be catcalled on our way to university. Instead, we deserve to be told that we can achieve anything. I love that women are already in high positions here at Keele. Victoria Taylor, for example, is our wonderful SU president, and Amy Tunstall is our Concourse editor-in-chief. That shows me that Keele already loves women, but more needs to be done. I personally want to focus on intersectionality. That means that it's not just the white, able-bodied, middle-class woman. I want to focus on every woman, no matter what race, what background, what social class, whether you're transgender, transsexual or gay, it doesn't matter. I want to be your women's representative that represents every woman, so please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Esra. Andy, just to clarify, do we do both speeches and then take questions? Or do we have questions first? Okay, thank you. So Audrey, you are next. Whenever you're ready to start.
When Ellen Page came out as a lesbian last week, she had this to say: "There are pervasive stereotypes about masculinity and femininity that define how we are all supposed to act, dress and speak. They serve no one. Anyone who defies these so-called norms becomes worthy of comment and scrutiny." I believe this is true. I believe that all prejudice comes from the same place. I believe that the sexism telling us that girls who wear short skirts deserve to be raped is the same sexism that tells us guys can't cry at the end of Bridget Jones's Diary. I believe that the prejudice telling us that women are better suited to be parents than men is the same prejudice that tells us that people of colour are more likely to assault you than their white counterparts. It's the same prejudice that says gay guys should all be well versed in fashion, that people with depression are lazy, and that nerds all live in their parents' basements playing World of Warcraft and drinking Mountain Dew. It is with this in mind that I stand here today, running for KeeleSU Women's Representative. So many people here at Keele face discrimination and prejudice. The number of reports just on Facebook of sexual assault and drink spiking has been increasing all year. The issue is that people are unaware of the full extent of the repercussions of, say, groping someone on a night out. I was talking with Danny Walker last month and he told me about a guy that didn't realise groping was sexual assault. Sexism is so ingrained into our society that it goes unnoticed all the time. Therefore, I propose 3 solutions to help support women at Keele and further reduce discrimination as a whole on campus. Firstly, we as a university need to reduce the stigma surrounding sexual assault on nights out. As I said earlier, it is an issue, and very little is known about the facts or where to go when incidents do happen. These need to be advertised more effectively. Secondly, prejudice as a whole needs to be tackled, and this requires all the reps who deal with discrimination to work together closely, maybe even going so far as to make an intersectionalism committee to deal with prejudice as a whole, rather than focusing on just our
10 seconds.
Finally, if elected, I will run campaigns surrounding gender roles, femininity and equal opportunities. This will help all genders feel more comfortable with who they are and not feel the need to combine
That's
themselves
time,
with
candidate.
standards that don't fit everyone.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we have 4 questions. We are going to, Audrey, you get to answer the first question first. So could we please have the first question? Audrey, you get to answer it, and then Esra, you can follow straight afterwards.
We actually have 1 question each specific to the candidates, and then there's 2 generic questions from the floor.
Fair enough. Is it okay if Audrey, you answer both of your questions first then? And then Esra, you do yours, and then we'll swap around. Brilliant,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so Audrey, you mentioned barriers to career progression and social mobility in your manifesto. How can you work with the university, and particularly with Keele Careers and Employability Service, to break down barriers for students facing social inequalities?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
You mentioned barriers to career progression and social mobility in your manifesto. How can you work with the university, and particularly with Keele's Careers and Employability Service, to break down barriers for students facing social inequalities?
I know as soon as I say glass ceiling, a lot of people will just roll their eyes because there's a lot of people that say that women and men do have equal opportunities when it comes to careers. This is not true. There is still a discrepancy with pay, and men are still generally further pushed to go for higher jobs in things like business and finance, whereas women tend to be less influenced regarding career opportunities, obviously, because they've got the whole children side of it. Obviously, women tend to be the ones expected to stay at home and look after any family or anything like that, and men tend to be expected to stay on and work. So I feel like just encouraging women to strive for higher roles in whatever industry they want to be in, and just generally raise awareness surrounding things like family and maternity and paternity leave.
Yep, and the next question?
Yeah, and this is the question to Esra. You rightly highlighted in your manifesto that support for trans women is sometimes lacking. What can you do to support trans women at Keele?
I mentioned in my manifesto and tonight in my speech that I want to focus on intersectional feminism. And that means that it's focusing on not just, like I said, white, able-bodied, middle-class women. It's about every woman. And I know that there are transgendered and transsexual women here at Keele, and I know that they need support, and that they need to know that there are women that do not judge them and do not dislike them for who they have become, and that everyone is there to support them and to be there for them. And I think I'll focus on working with different societies, whether it be the LGBT society or just any society with women in, and so I hope to include everybody and work alongside them and take their advice on board and try and better their Keele journey for them.
Thank you.
We have 2 questions from the floor. The first question is to both candidates. Sexual assaults are on the increase at universities. What would you do to make sure that victims are heard and taken seriously?
Esra, could you answer this one first?
Sexual assault is something that happens at all universities, and it needs to be stopped. And I think that awareness needs to be raised. And I think that we can use different platforms. For example, Concourse magazine. I know that we at Concourse, we take anybody's opinions on board, and I'd love to raise awareness and write about sexual assault on campus. If people are willing to write, say, anonymously, or even if they want to write with their own name, they'll be able to have a voice, and they'll be able to speak about what they've gone through, what they want to be changed, and how it's made them feel. And I feel like people shouldn't have to sit back and not feel as though they can identify themselves as being victims of sexual assault. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and we should let people have a voice and be able to speak about what they've gone through. And if they don't want to do it personally, they can maybe speak to somebody about it and get somebody else to tell their story. And obviously we have places like counselling on campus, which is there to help them. And if elected your women's representative, then I will personally speak to anybody that wants to speak to me about it and just try and raise as much awareness as possible for them.
Thank you. And Audrey, whenever you're ready.
KeeleSU does have a no tolerance policy on sexual assault. Unfortunately, this isn't particularly well known. I know just from speaking to women that a lot of people did not know that it didn't have a zero tolerance policy, and this is a massive issue. Obviously, going to sabbatical offices can be really intimidating. As I said before, not everyone knows exactly what counts as sexual assault, so I think just generally raising awareness of sexual assault itself and then advertising what to do if something does happen, so that when unfortunately incidents do happen, people have somewhere to go and they have a support network. Because all these things are already in place, people just don't know about them, so it's going to be mostly raising awareness of what there is. Thank you.
Final question from the floor is for both candidates. To what extent are you prepared to work with a men's rep, if elected, to solve any and all relevant issues?
Thank you. Can we have Audrey for this one first?
I've spoken with Jake quite a lot over the past couple of months. He's been progressively getting more interested in the Women's Society, and through that I feel like we have had a fair amount of communication. I feel like the role of men's rep, the role of men's rep is a good role if it's used in the right way. I know a lot of the time people run for men's rep purely to undermine the women's rep. That's not good, but if he's willing to work with me, I'd be just as willing to work with them. As Jake said in his speech, there are very few issues, if any, that affect just one gender. Generally, if there's discrimination against one gender, it will be linked to some kind of discrimination in the other. And so I feel like working together is going to be really, really important in order to reduce sexism as a whole on campus.
Thank you. And Esra?
I'd just like to reiterate what Audrey and Jake both said. I do believe that there should be a men's representative, because I am a believer in feminism and that sexes should be equal, and it wouldn't be equal if there wasn't a men's representative, because men do have issues. And so I would like to work alongside the men's rep to deal with those issues, because like what has been previously said, no issues solely affect one gender. And so I'd like to work with them and show that we are put on a united front, and show that we are working for a better, equal society here at Keele University. Whether that be by campaigning together or just meeting up from time to time and discussing what problems have arisen. It's about equality at the end of the day, and men do have issues, whether it be that they're ignored when it comes to domestic violence, because men are victims of domestic violence and people just seem to assume that it just happens to women sometimes. And so I'd like to raise issues like that, just talk about issues that do affect both genders, when sometimes men's problems aren't always mentioned, and people seem to think that it is just about women that are oppressed, because men do have issues as well. So I'd like to work alongside him to eradicate the stigma that surrounds both feminism and men's issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to our candidates for the position of Women's Rep.